Israel estimates that Hamas still has 100 hostages, including 7 Americans. More than a third of those hostages are believed to be dead. My next guest knows the horror of being a Hamas hostage firsthand. Aviva Siegel and her husband Keith were kidnapped from their home in a kibbutz on October 7th. After spending 51 days together as hostages in Gaza, Aviva was freed and forced to leave her husband of 43 years behind. Every day since then, since that last day that she saw Keith, she has been fighting to bring him home. Aviva Siegel joins me now. Thank you so much for joining us. And I just can't even believe the nightmare is continuing for you and all the other hostage families. You have said that leaving Gaza was one of the hardest things you've ever done because it meant leaving Keith there. And you know what it was like there. You can more than imagine what he's going through.
Yes, leaving Keith there behind was one of the hardest things that I've ever done in my life. And, you know, being here back and living and with my family without Keith for more than a year, it breaks my heart. We've just buried Keith's mom more than a week, just a week ago. And to think about Keith not being here, while in Gaza he said that the first thing that he wants to do when he gets out of Gaza is to hug his mom. And she died.
You were there for 51 days. During those 51 days, you were held hostage. You lost 20 pounds. You were weak and sick when you were released. What were conditions like?
The conditions were the worst conditions that any human being should go through. I was thrown in underneath the ground with no food and no water, and I touched death. I felt death so close to me. I was scared to look at Keith dead. And I just prayed that I would die before Keith because it was too much for me to handle. And Keith was the most outstanding, loving person. He helped me there in so many moments that were difficult for me. And to think that Keith is there without me, I don't know how he's managing. I just don't know how he could be there for more than a year without me, after being married to him for 43 years.
You wrote an essay in Atlantic magazine, and you wrote in it, the things that keep you up and haunt you. Is he alone? Is he sad or crying? Is he in a tunnel with no oxygen? Is he sick or being tortured? Is he alive? You don't know.
No, we don't know. We don't know, but I'm holding my fingers that Keith is doing everything he can to keep alive, to come back to his family. And it just, you know, it's very difficult for me not knowing anything about Keith. And I do know that Keith needs to come home before they kill him, before it'll be too late. And I just can't wait for his grandchildren to run and give him a hug. And we'll all cry together and jump in the air, and we'll be the happiest people in earth, because that's what he deserves. He deserves to come back to his family. He was taken from his house with his pajamas, and Hamas is responsible of all the pictures that you see that's happening in Gaza, because they just don't even think about people as being humans. We were taken all the human rights away from us, and I felt it with every minute being in Gaza, and to think that the hostages and the girls that I was with, that they're still in Gaza, who knows how many times they've been raped or touched or tortured or beaten. And I think it's the cruelest thing that us as humans could just let people be left underneath the ground in Gaza with no human rights.
Were you held, I know you and Keith were together, and we should say Keith is an American, he's from North Carolina. The two of you were taken from your kibbutz in your pajamas together. Were you held with other hostages or just the two of you alone? And were you underground?
Keith and I were moved 13 times in Gaza, and we were with different people from Israel. So we were with a family that had just saw that the father and the child that was 19 was murdered in front of their eyes. And we were with girls that are still in Gaza going through hell. And I just can't tell you how hard it is for me knowing exactly where they are and what they're going through, and knowing that they're still there underneath the ground.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.